Appalachian Mountains, where the trees whisper warnings and the shadows move when no one's looking. If you've ever wondered what's out there, keep watching.
Are the feral people in the Smoky Mountains real? And some people have asked me, Brooke, are the feral people in the Smoky Mountains real? Because I live in the Smoky Mountains. Dusty, Are the feral people real?
Yes, they are.
Dusty goes in the woods a lot. He likes to hunt. Dusty has came across so many feral people. Now, they don't come up to you unless they want to hurt you. But Dusty has told me plenty of times he's in the wood, he's out scouting for a place to hunt. So Dusty told me that he has to use his little rangefinder and binoculars and all that stuff, when he's scouting out woods. And he can see them. He has seen them standing behind trees watching him. But they usually don't bother you unless you bother them. There are so many people that get lost in the Smoky Mountains, and some of them are never found again. And they always say something like, oh, it was a bear attack. It was probably a bear. It was not a bear. On more than one occasion, we have been out in the woods. We've been fishing, not fishing, and you can hear their screams and hollers in the middle of the night, and they echo around the mountains. The people that usually go missing in the Smoky Mountains are tourists, out-of-towners that don't know to mind their own business. And it's usually they always blame the bears, and it makes me so mad. The bears are innocent. They don't do anything most of the time. It is those feral people up in the Smoky Mountains. So yeah, the feral people, they're real.
Wasn't even going to record this video, but I honestly can't even comprehend what I saw last night. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. I was sleeping, dead asleep last night above my cab. All of a sudden, I heard something rummaging through my cab. Ran. It was on two legs, so it definitely wasn't a bear, because last time I checked, I've seen a lot of bears, and bears run on four legs. So I got out in the middle of the night. I don't usually do that because it is creepy as heck when you're out here in the middle of nowhere in the dark. Door was open, and this bin was on the ground. The lid was off. There's food all over the ground, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? I don't know what I'm gonna do right now. I just stuck around today because I want to try to figure out what's going on. I just had my top popped down because if anything happens, I want to be able to bolt out of here with no problems. It's getting dark, and I want to try to see if I can get something on camera, what this potentially might be. I don't have the greatest equipment for night shooting because I don't typically shoot at night, so you're gonna have to bear with me. I have multiple forms of protection. I don't know. We're gonna check out and see what happens. It's getting dark. Oh, it's been about 3 hours and I haven't seen or heard anything, but I'm gonna keep waiting. Still waiting around. Haven't seen or heard anything. It's getting kind of late. Did you see that thing?
This is a story I heard from a trucker who used to drive out on the East Coast. Now, he got a job to haul a load once a month to a remote spot in the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. And he thought it was really weird because they would basically have him drop this load out in the middle of nowhere. And he had no idea why he was putting this load on the side of the road, but they paid really good money, so he just really didn't care. So for several months, he would drop this load off. He would go up into mountains, and there was a spot right by the woods where he could pull off, and he was told to unload the truck. Well, this one particular night, he's driving there, and he ends up getting behind, so he gets there late, and it's completely dark. He unloads the truck and puts it, on the side of the road where he was instructed, and he decides he's going to get a few hours sleep. And he didn't think it would be, any sort of problem, because there was no one around. So he goes into the back of his truck, and he starts sleeping. He wakes up in the middle of the night and he starts hearing like these weird vocalizations, like these screams, like something is communicating to something else through the woods. And it's getting louder and louder. And then he hears outside of his truck like all this commotion and noise. He thinks, you know, this is just some of the wildlife in the area. I'm just going to go back to sleep. So he goes back to sleep for a couple more hours. He wakes up. It's now daylight. And when he goes into the front of his truck and he looks out his window, he sees there are all of these people like hanging up in the trees, like staring at him. And he said, you know, they just all look like they were, you know, inbred or deformed. And they're just climbing, you know, up 10 feet, 15 feet up in these trees, just hanging from the trees like monkeys staring at him. And he couldn't figure out what was going on. And they all kind of come down from the trees and start taking the stuff from the load into the woods. And so like he got in his truck right away and started up and just got out of there. And he said he talked to other truckers and he said, these are the feral people, or they call them, you know, the inbreds who live in the Appalachian Mountains. They don't like to communicate with the outside world, and they get supplies dropped off to them from time to time to survive out in the woods. But the police, no one will bother them. No one even goes near them. The only time they socialize with people is when they get these loads dropped off of goods to sustain them until the next shipment comes.
The very frightening and disturbing possibility that pockets of feral people still exist in deep wilderness areas up and down the Appalachian Mountains and foothills. I don't mean to suggest that the phenomena of feral people is endemic just to Appalachia, the American South, as though I'm making fun of somebody or saying that people, mountain people or southern people are more likely to become feral. That's ridiculous. That's nonsense. That's all I'll say about that. I'm not going to make fun of my own people. I'm a curious person. I'm a researcher and an investigator, and this subject caught my attention. And I started wanting some answers. The phenomenon of feral people is worldwide, and reports and discussion of feral people go back into antiquity. Now, these areas that has this concentration of reports, they all have something in common. Vast areas of uninhabited wildernesses of some type or another. Appalachian Mountains, Appalachian foothills, absolutely the case. Vast wilderness. Most of Appalachia is still wilderness. And I go on record with great confidence as saying there's parts of Appalachia where no man or woman has ever stepped. You could hide a herd of woolly mammoths out there for all we know. I'm not suggesting that. That's hyperbole. But you could have woolly mammoths out there and they might never be detected. In other words, there's no telling what's hidden in this vast wilderness that we don't know about yet. And we certainly don't know everything that we think we know. The Appalachian Mountains run for 2,000 miles, for crying out loud. So you look at everything and you boil it down to its simplest form. There are more than just a few reports. And these reports, this isn't a recent thing. They go back more than 100 years. The Appalachian wilderness itself is more than capable of sustaining these pockets of feral people. The available building materials in the Appalachian hardwood forest is great, and a primitive people would know how to make shelter out of these materials to get away from the elements. Then you factor in that there's vast cave systems, and also dotted on the landscape up and down the mountains and foothills are these abandoned homesteads, barns. There's way out in the middle of nowhere. I've run across them. The available food in the Appalachian Mountains and foothills. The diversity of animal life is great and plentiful, and also there's the plants. Very, very biodiverse area in terms of plants for food and for medicine. But it's the disappearances that propel me more than anything else. There's some famous cases. One of these cases is the very tragic case of Dennis Lloyd Martin, a little 6-year-old boy who in June of 1969, while in the Great Smoky Mountains, he just vanished, while within yards of his family. Some odd things about that case, but one of the things that gets my attention the most is the fact that from the highest levels of government, the special forces out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, was ordered to the Great Smoky Mountains to look for this little boy. The Green Berets got there and they informed the authorities and they informed the people running the searches. They said, we won't be a part of you. We've hired a couple of guides. We're going out by ourselves. And it is said that they did in fact encounter feral people, and it is also said that they killed some feral people. And I tend to believe that. That's certainly not the kind of thing that our government is going to admit to, obviously, but that's well within reason to believe that. The amazing thing is this: the total number of feral people would be very, very minuscule compared to the population. These scant numbers of feral people spread out over such a vast wilderness, yet there's still all of these reports. Now, we have in our society a certain segment that no matter what, if something falls outside of that box of approved stuff, then they're not going to believe it. And worse yet, they will make fun of people. They will ridicule people. They will call people liars. They will call people stupid. And nobody wants to be treated like that. That's why the vast majority of people who encounter extraordinary things just keep it to themselves. I have learned this after 3.5, 4 years of interviewing witnesses. Nobody wants to be made fun of or ridiculed or called a liar. Imagine if everybody who's had experiences out of the ordinary came forward and talked about it. Now, the testimony of witnesses, we see similarities spanning the spectrum. We see, in many cases, great details. People report across the board these deformed facial features, twisted bodies and spines, oddly enough, cataracts, very thick, white, milky cataracts, thinning, sparse, stringy hair, unclothed or clothed in rags, odd hairiness on their bodies, strange vocal, guttural grunts and sounds, people hearing an unknown language and then hearing these clicks and tree knocks and whistles and things like that, that apparently is the way that they would communicate at distance. The bottom line is that it is well within reason that isolated people can and probably do survive in the Appalachian Mountains. Now, on to my experience. In May of 2021, I was invited to western Rutherford County to investigate a cave, this small cave. Now, this cave had been revealed after a controlled burn. There was a lot of foliage there. I believe they said there were some rhododendron bushes very thick. The controlled burn burned all that away, and there was the cave. So I, along with a group of people, went to explore it. Now, on the way there, after it was in the wilderness, we got very lucky. We discovered a single track. Now, you have to keep in mind, on the forest floor of the Appalachian hardwood belt, it's very difficult to find a track, much less a track with detail, due to the leaf litter and the debris and the weather. But we got very lucky, and we found a single track. Now, the maker of this track had apparently stepped over a log, barefooted, stepped over a log, and there was a giant patch of what's called ground cedar. It's a spreading ground cover. But as they stepped over the log, they slipped. And at the terminus of that slippage, they left an absolutely beautiful track. 8.5 inches long, definitely human. But two odd things about the track. The toes were splayed like this. Our feet, because we wear shoes, our toes are like this. Their toes were splayed. But more importantly, that track, this person was completely and overtly flat-footed and compared to the length, an extraordinary width to the track. After doing some research and talking to some people in the know, that's a sign of a person who has went their whole life walking barefooted. Now, what regular person out of our society would be walking around the forest in the middle of nowhere in the Appalachians without shoes on? Our modern, tender, vulnerable feet could never do that. We don't have the calluses, but somebody who has done it their whole life is going to have very, very tough feet. So we have to explain this track. Now, the cave itself, the entrance in and out, there was great wear. It was obviously made by flat-footedness. It wasn't animal hooves or claws. So something was going in and out of that cave. It has to be explained. So what's the takeaway from this? Well, why would people go feral? Well, a lot of reasons. They just get isolated, or there's some isolated cases of maybe people who isolated themselves for religious reasons. but it is more than possible. Now, I don't mean to suggest that we bother these people or try to harm them or capture them in any way. We leave them alone. But I'm saying this, if you're a hiker or a camper or you're prone to be out there in the wilderness, just be careful and be aware.
Now, in the Appalachian Mountains, you're always going to hear the folklore, the legends of the feral people. Some say they're true and some say they're not. But there's always a possibility, especially in the most remote parts of the Appalachian Mountains. People just want to be left alone. They're feral for a reason. Some people say they know them, but I'm going to tell you an eyewitness account that happened to two hikers that were hiking the Appalachian Trail. A man and his girlfriend were hiking to the Appalachian Mountains, and they were on a trail, and they decided that they didn't want to camp in a designated area, and they were going to camp where they wanted to. So they pretty much went off to a place that wasn't allowed to have camping, and they started their fire, set up their tent, ate a good dinner, hang around the campfire until he got tired, went in the tent, and went to sleep. Roughly around 3 a.m., the man woke up. He heard something outside of his tent, and it was stepping on sticks and moving leaves around, it was crunching them. And he listened, and he's like, no, that's too heavy to be a deer. Those are too big of steps to be a critter. And then he listened a little harder as it got closer. And he started hearing somebody whispering. 2 people or more were talking out in the woodline. But it was still sounding kind of close. So he thought that he was going to grab his flashlight real slow. As he sat up in the tent, he slowly and quietly as he could unzipped the zipper. And he stuck his head out and he didn't see anything. And he listened again. And the whispering was coming from the woodline. So he got his flashlight ready and he hit it on real quick. And he shined it right on a tall man. And this man was said to have a long beard and long scruffy hair that looked unkempt, hadn't been brushed in a long time. And the man paused. It was a wild man looking, crazy look in his eyes. And he looked at that hiker, and the hiker looked at him in the flashlight light. And the guy jumped. And he whispered something to somebody that might have been behind the tree next to him, and then took off running. And during the time that this happened, the hiker did yell at him. And it scared, I guess, the feral man, and the man took off running, like I said. Well, this scared the hiker plumb to death. And he got out of his tent, and he started putting wood on that fire. And he was stoking it, and he said he got that fire as bright as he could so he could see all around that wood line near him to make sure that nobody else was going to sneak in on him. So he stayed up all night long. The next morning, his girlfriend woke up, and she was like, what are you doing? Why are you out here so early? What happened to you? And he told her just enough to not scare her about what happened the night before. And they said, okay, they ate a good breakfast. They packed up, and they headed on down the trail. Nighttime was coming again, and they were way down the trail this time. And the man spotted a cliff face, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to set up on this cliff. That way, in case they return tonight, I can have no worries in the world about them coming in from behind us and getting us. All they can get us is from the front. So we're protected back there. So they did the same thing they did the night before. They set up their fire. They ate. They got tired, hung out, and went to bed. And guess what happened? Oh, it happened again. The talking started and the crunching of the leaves and walking. And this time the man was tired of it and he was fed up and scared. And he had his flashlight ready. And he unzipped that tent as fast as he could. He shined that light on. And when he did, there were 3 to 4 people standing there looking identical to the man that had been there before. And the hiker said as soon as that flashlight hit them, they scattered. And they were hiding behind trees, and the other ones ran off into the woods, all wild-like. They were fast, too. This time he said that he woke up his woman and said, we're packing up camp, and we're getting up out of these woods. So that's what they did. He woke her up, they packed up camp, and they headed towards a main road. And they said they hiked all night long. And they stayed on that main road until they get to a place to get back home. And to this day, that man swears that he will never hike the Appalachian Trail again. And these are coming from avid hikers, not just your person that wants to go walk a trail every once in a while. These are people that were hardy that did this all the time. Now, if you believe in feral people, I don't blame you. They could be out there. There's too much wilderness for them not to be. And some people just don't want to be found.
The only time that I have been truly terrified in the Appalachian Mountains as an Appalachian native was this one time my husband and I went camping with our couple friend, and we went primitive hiking and primitive camping, and they was late getting ready, and they brought a ton of stuff because they just never done it before. And we got there late because they We were running late. And I stayed behind by myself to clear up an area that someone else had previously used for camping. And they went back to the car to bring back all the stuff they had brought. So we ran out of daylight. I'm using a lantern. And all of a sudden, as I'm chopping down these weeds so that we can put our tents down and I can build a fire pit, everything stops. The breeze stops. All sounds stop. The bugs, the animals, everything. I feel the hair on my neck and my arms just stand up straight and this feeling of dread and like, I was done. Don't do that, y'all. Don't go out in the mountains by yourself because you could just fall down and break your ankle and no one can hear you. It doesn't have to be any other reason. Then all of a sudden, and I've never heard voices in my life before that or after that. I don't have anything wrong that would cause that to happen to me. I was completely sober. I'm always completely sober. I hear voices, and it's like hundreds of voices just spinning around me in a circle as if I am just standing in the middle of a tornado of voices. Old men, old women, young women, young boys, young girls, creepy. And I'm like rubbing my ears like, oh my gosh, what is going on? I just hunger against a tree, hunger down against a tree, and I start praying the Lord's Prayer, all the prayers. And it took about 20 minutes before it stopped. And when it stopped, I said more prayers. And then I got up and I finished making the camp and they came back. And you don't talk about it. You're supposed to leave the area. So I couldn't talk about it. There's no way we would have left the area that night. They just wouldn't have done it. So we stayed. And I didn't tell anybody what happened until we got back home. We stayed 2 nights.
Have you ever been out in the wilderness in Appalachia and felt like something's watching you? That's because something is watching you. One of the most common things I hear from people who visit Appalachia is they feel like something or someone is watching them, whether it's on the Appalachian Trail or just somewhere in Appalachia on vacation. In a lot of cases, people believe that these are the feral people of Appalachia. No one is quite sure. There are some theories of where feral people come from, but it's believed that they live very primitive out in the mountains. Many people believe they live underground or in cave systems. That's why they're not spotted that often. The Smoky Mountains seem to be a hot spot for feral people, the most visited national park in the U.S., and I have shared stories from park rangers who have encountered these feral people. Many people believe that the United States government are aware of their existence, but have no other way to contain them other than to let them be in the park system. I'm sure the majority of the people who go missing, it can be explained by natural causes, but there are those few who have encountered these feral people and was able to get away and share their story. I've lived in Appalachia all my life. I love it. I'm very comfortable in the mountains, and I recommend that if you've never seen them, that you definitely should. But just be aware when you're out in a place like this, there is a lot of wildlife you probably will encounter, but there are other things that you might encounter too.
This couple was driving through the Appalachian Mountains and it got late, so they decided to pull over and get some sleep. They were awoken about 2 o'clock in the morning and noticed there were 4 people that looked like they were from the hills, have eyes in front of them. They turned on the car, decided to slowly back up, and that 4 people turned into 12 people. They noticed that there was a tree cut down behind them to stop them from leaving, but they were able to reverse and get out of there and get back on the highway and leave.
What is that? Guys, do you see that? There's something hanging in the tree. Hello? Hello? There's something in this tree. What is that? Oh, guys. There's another one. Oh, there's another one right there. Oh, what the heck? No way. There's more. Look at these. It's another? Bro. Just so everyone can see, we're literally like completely middle of nowhere. Wait, is it? There's something else. Is that a bone? Yeah. What's that back there? What? In the trees. Back there? Hello? Should we take a look?
Good. Because you would say, let's do a watch.
What is that? Are those logs and an X? Bro. No.
Never seen anything like this in my entire life, bro. I come out of my car. This is what's in the driver's seat.
Guys, I'm in the occupied territory of the Appalachian Mountains, and it's pouring rain outside, and there are people outside, but I hear some screaming from the woods, and it's like so freaky. We all don't know what to do with ourselves. Do you hear that? The police are here and they don't even know what to do themselves. They're like locking themselves in. We're all terrified.
I mean, there's no doubt that's a human footprint. Where a human footprint should not be. I've got movement over here. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Buckle fell off. Come on. Okay, so you know, at this point, like, I don't really.
Oh my god. Oh my god. There's a face. Dude, look at my screen. Look at my lens. You can't zoom in that far. There's a guy standing right there. Look at his face. Oh. What the f*** is that? Let's go. What the f*** is that? Go. What is that? A head? Is that a person? Someone watching us? Dude, look at that. It looks like a face. Alright, so we're officially lost somehow. No clue where the hell we are. But we're trying to make our way out. We took a wrong path somewhere in the darkness. As you guys can see, it's freaking dark. Yeah, we're lost, man. The reason why we're lost is because we panicked. Because there was something. I'm trying to get some light here. Where's my flashlight? There was something chasing after us.
Thanks for watching. If these Appalachian woods gave you chills, make sure to subscribe. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, question everything, and don't follow the sounds in the dark.